Here. So you all, now y'all know this next about political tea.
Here comes the feds.
Here come the feds. It's time for Here Come the Feds. And are you ready?
No,
let me know what's
you
happening.
got about 30 seconds.
I got 30 seconds. 30 seconds, tell them all. We're going to be talking about Bush Cheney, because let me tell you something. I am a historian. Yes, I am. I have a minor in history from Texas A&M University. And I'm a politician, well, political scientist. I got a degree in political science also from Texas A&M University. So I'm going to let you know the political, here come the feds. And where are the feds when you need them?
Ready?
Yep, here we go. Let's see if it's going to maybe sound too, oh yeah, oh yeah. Ah, oh, I love that intro. Ah, oh, ah, ah. I love my intro. Yep. And we are back with It's Debatable with Attorney Nyans and more, and you are now tuned in to our Here Come the Feds segment. So today we're going to be discussing just a little bit, because I am a fan of history and political intrigue. I have a political science degree from Texas A&M University, and a history degree as well from A&M as well. And I'm a lawyer, so I'm always caught up in what's going on in the world politically. And when it comes to the feds, I'm talking about the U.S. feds and every fed around the country, around the world. So if you recall, at the top of the first hour, I was talking about the bomb or the explosion that happened at the Kabul airport over there in Afghanistan. I want to take you back, because we're almost approaching the anniversary of the September 11th attack of the World Trade Center that brought down Tower 1 and Tower 2 that fateful morning. And I want to discuss just a little bit about that. We need to all remember that we got the killer who actually was responsible for the flights that went into the World Trade Center. And that was Osama bin Laden. We knew it was Osama bin Laden that did it. Now, on the day of the attacks on the World Trade Center, there were people from Osama bin Laden's very wealthy family. Osama bin Laden came from a multimillionaire family. He was not some poor pauper. He was very rich. And he just lived in the hills to make it seem like he was one of the people. But he was not of the people. He was rich, like I said. So right on the same day of the attacks, instead of the United States government and the Bush 2 locking down the United States, remember they locked all of us down to where we couldn't leave or come in, but they allowed the bin Laden family to hop on private planes and get out of the United States very safely and back to their country. They got to go back to Pakistan. And here's the thing about all of the reason why I'm telling you this backstory is because we all know that Osama bin Laden was executed after he was found by the United States military during the Obama presidency. However, prior to that, we had been on the hunt for Osama bin Laden for almost a decade, or almost 15 years. And the reason why people need to remember this is because we have been in the war in Iraq. We had been in the war in Iraq since 2002. In 2002. That being said, that's almost 20 years in a war. The reason why we were fighting a war in Iraq, allegedly, was because the Iraqis had enough weapons of mass destruction and they were threatening to wipe out the United States with these huge nuclear bombs or whatever. And if you recall, the Bush 1 presidency, not the little Bush that we all remember very well. We're talking about Senior Bush, who passed away not too long ago. Bush 1 did not like Saddam Hussein. Bush 1, when I believe he may have been, was he ever Secretary of State? Whatever he was, Vice President. He was the one in charge of the relationship with Saddam Hussein. Bush 1 helped put Saddam Hussein in power. Okay, y'all remember that? Saddam Hussein was put into power by the United States government. We supported him and his guerrillas to overthrow that current dictator at the time and help Saddam get into power. Well, when Saddam took over power, he realized, you know what? I like to be king. I do not want the United States telling me how to run my country now that I'm in charge. So what did he do? He said, bye, U.S. Bush, Senior Bush. Don't bring your butt over here trying to tell me what to do over here in Iraq. This is my country now. Y'all made me the new president, baby, and I'm going to be president for life. Well, Bush 1 didn't really like that because now Bush 1 was saying, but you're not letting us take our oil through where we need to, and you're not letting us pillage Iraq and Afghanistan for all the oil that we need whenever we want it. You're not letting us build all of our pipelines, letting the U.S. have all the oil. So Saddam said, so what? You want the oil? You got to pay for it. Well, Saddam, being the dictator that he was able to shoot up the middle finger to Bush 1. And then, because he kind of said, try to come over to Iraq and do something. America, I got something for you. I'm going to put them hands on you. So Bush 1 took that as a threat. Well, when Bush 2 ran for president, he vowed when he took office that he would get revenge on Saddam Hussein for putting basically a threat on his dad's life. Now, when he becomes president and realizes that our Pakistani gentleman, Osama bin Laden, was the person responsible for the 9/11 attacks. I guess Bush too didn't realize that we knew the difference between Pakistan and Iraq. And that maybe that he needed to figure out a way for us to go into war and overthrow Saddam Hussein like Bush 1 tried to do, but he didn't get reelected that second time around because he got beaten out by Bill Clinton. So Bush 2 decided to say, hey, my daddy said he was going to get your behind, so I'm going to do it for you. And what did he do? He called up Condoleezza Rice and said, hey, Condi, come on over here to the Oval Office. Let's have a conversation there, gal. He said, go ahead and call my good buddy Colin Powell. Come on over to the Oval Office. Let's have a discussion. Now, Dick Cheney talked to who was the then vice president at the time. Dick Cheney came in and ran the United States government under Bush 2. He did. We all knew that we wanted to sit down and have a good old beer with George Bush II. He's a good old country boy. We love him. But Dick Cheney was the czar in charge of the 9/11 post-war attacks and all of that regime to try to go to war in Iraq, which we had no business being there in the first place. So when all of the people were up in arms about why are you trying to invade Iraq, and Cheney was trying to make sure that we could get our military arms budget up, they got all of these executive powers. Remember the things that happened? Whenever we had the 9/11 attacks, they used that to figure out a way to take away our rights to privacy. Remember that? They came up with this 1,000-page document called the Patriot Act, saying that they have a right to bug your phones, tap your lines, listen in on your cell phone calls, look at your text messages, and the, what do they call it? The NA, whatever they call it, the NSA. They were able to go ahead and listen in on everything that you were talking about, saying that because we're under high alert from the terrorist attacks in 9/11, and because Osama bin Laden is somewhere out there in the world, we may not know where he is, but we have to link this back to Saddam Hussein some kind of way. We need to go ahead and have a report to say, and every American needs to waive all their rights to privacy, and every American needs to go ahead and waive their right to be able to say that you have to have a warrant to be able to listen in on my conversations. Well, Bush 2 did away with all that warrant necessity. Then they gave us the TSA to say, okay, not only are we going to take away your right to privacy and go ahead and tap your phones whenever you don't know about it and use that evidence against you, which is also entrapment, then we're going to also frisk you down without your consent at the airport if you want to fly. And then they're going to say, even after the threat, when people say, well, is there really that much of a threat? Because we thought that the threat was from Pakistan, and Osama bin Laden is in Pakistan, and the Pakistanis are hiding him from us. And where did they find Osama bin Laden when they murdered him under President Obama? Right there hiding in Pakistan, hiding in plain sight, living in his house with all of his wives and his kids playing out in the lawn. That's what he had been doing, hiding in plain sight for 15 years under our noses. But Bush 2 and Cheney only wanted to focus on Saddam Hussein in Iraq because they knew that with a war in Iraq, they could go ahead and ask for trillions of dollars worth of more funding for a war. Wars are expensive. Wars put people back to work in the United States. That's the way they get the arms machines running to get everybody paid. So all the Republicans, everybody in the conservative party, like, we got to go to war. How can we do it? We need a bigger budget for the military, bigger budget for the arms. We need more weapons. We need more helicopters. We need more of this. Well, when the United Nations went in and had their inspectors go into Iraq to see whether or not there was enough information to go ahead and confirm that the UN needed to anticipate that Iraq has the manpower to blow all of us off of the planet, they were met with resistance when the UN inspectors went over there But then they said, okay, we got some resistance at the beginning. I'm not saying like China gave up the resistance when they had the inspectors going in trying to check and see whether or not they created the coronavirus. I'm talking about they resisted for like 15 minutes and then they were like, we're resisting you because we don't know why you're inspecting us for weapons of mass destruction when we don't even know how to build the base to put the weapon in. So feel free, we're resisting you now, but go ahead and come on and have a look. Well, unfortunately, the Cheney regime and the Republicans were in control at the time, and they were so caught up with making sure they shoved the war down our throats that they decided to have a big old meeting in the Oval Office and have a secret meeting with Dick Cheney, Condoleezza Rice, and all the other powers that be to say we need to put a spin on this for the American people so they can go ahead and want to go to war. The only way to convince them of the war is to convince them that there is a fake threat out there. There were no weapons of mass destruction found in Iraq. None at all. The hunt for Saddam Hussein, that was all because of Bush 2 wanted to spend all of our government resources trying to overthrow an independent government that the United States put in power in the first place. But when the United States got mad, we decided to overthrow their government and then assassinate their lifelong president, Saddam Hussein, even though there were no weapons of mass destruction that caused thousands of American soldiers. 500,000 Iraqis were injured in the war. Millions were killed in the war. There were 9.5 million Iraqis that became immediately dependent on aid from other agencies whenever the United States decided to do the bombs over Baghdad in Iraq to prove that we needed to go to war. They blew up everything, and then they put this lie out there that, well, we had to go ahead and do it because we thought they were going to blow us up. Well, then they had 4.5 million people in need of food in Iraq. Then they had Saddam Hussein and his sons on the run. Then you had the Taliban come in and say, hold on, what you doing over here coming up here blowing up our stuff? We're not going to war with y'all. What happened to Saddam? What happened to y'all going over into Pakistan? Why aren't y'all trying to blow them up? Oh, it's because you need the oil from Pakistan more than you need it from Saddam Hussein. That's all it was. Because guess what? We're still friends with Pakistan and they hit Osama bin Laden. Anyway, I want to know, where does the federal government stand and how late is too late to bring war crimes claim against Dick Cheney? Is he too old to face charges for lying to the American people and lying and telling us that there are weapons of mass destruction in order to sell the American public on a war that we should never have been in? And the reason I brought that up is because hashtag 20 and a half or almost 21 years later, we are now trying to figure out how to get the F out of Iraq without all the Americans being pulverized and blown up, because that's what's happening. That's what happened this morning. On the west side of the Kabul airport in the Abbey section, which is where about 164 Americans were trying to get to that were working in Afghanistan that had been there for years. There's a hotel near the airport on the west side of Afghanistan, which is where the Americans stay, and the Afghanis that have been assisting the Americans with trying to do the transition of the government, which was an epic fail since that didn't happen. The Taliban was like, okay, come on, we see y'all are over there on the left. We watch CNN too. We're going to come over there. And there were warnings all week long telling Americans, do not go to the airport. And the Americans that went to the airport, unfortunately, some of them may have suffered as a consequence because there was an explosion this morning. Well, here's what I have to say about that. Dick Cheney and Bush 2, you have blood on your hands, specifically because all of those soldiers, not just American soldiers, I'm talking about the soldiers from France, Canada, and all the other countries that joined in, and Great Britain that joined in on the fight against the Taliban regime based on the United States lie that we had weapons of mass destruction that we allegedly discovered, which were not there in Iraq. So we got into a country, tried to take over their country, which I don't know why we would be in their country in the first place. You cannot convert a religious country into becoming a secular country that accepts everything, because you cannot make the West be the new standard bearer for how other countries should run their governments, because apparently our stuff ain't working either, because we have more killings than everybody else. I think we kill more people over here with gun violence than the Taliban. I'm just being honest. So that's the conspiracy. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about something that I was going to work on for our 9/11 episode, but I'm going to go ahead and talk about it now because this is breaking news. Spike Lee, who, I love Spike Lee. I love Malcolm X. I love all of his works that he's done. I liked She's Gotta Have It, which was the black and white film, which I think was his debut show, his debut movie. He is a Morehouse man. He's a wonderful graduate of Morehouse, which is also where my brother-in-law went to school, at Morehouse. And my sister's a spell woman, so they call it the Spell House, but I digress. So our Morehouse man, Spike Lee, has been working up his own 9/11 conspiracy. And guess what? Somebody deaded that real quick. Unfortunately, at the ripe old age of, I don't know how old Spike Lee is at this time, but he must be old enough to think that 9/11 was a hoax. He is alleging that, unfortunately, he's come out with this 4-part documentary limited series that was slated to debut on, was it Netflix? I'm not sure. Let's see. It's either Netflix, one of those streaming medias, one of the big ones anyway. One who has $100 million to pay somebody. Anyway, in the 4th installment on the series that has not debuted yet, he says, it's on what?
HBO.
It's on HBO. Well, there you go. HBO is bigger than Netflix, baby. It's the real stuff. So HBO apparently asked Spike Lee to rework that 4th final episode before they released the 4-part series, because it said that Spike Lee juxtaposed the way that Building 7 fell to the ground with the way a building is supposed to collapse versus the way it actually collapsed, stating that the heat that was generated from the fire on 9/11 was not hot enough to cause the steel metal spikes, the steel that went all the way up the center of the 2 towers. Apparently the metal twisted, and in order for it to collapse, the heat would had to have been harder. So there was some debunked conspiracy theories put out by some crazies back there in 2004, where they were saying that there were bombs put in different places inside of the building that were exploding, right, at the time of the attack, to make sure that the buildings actually collapsed. And that theory is so far crazy debunked, because it's hard, you would be hard pressed to believe that the American government would create an attack like that on its own citizens. So that's kind of dumb. And Spike Lee must have been engaging into some dumbness. And, I'm going to hold out for Spike. I don't want to do too much judgment on the episode. I'm just going based off of what one of the insiders was able to watch of the final episode in a viewing segment. And then the HBO folks said, you know what? We're not going to be going with that theory. And it sounded kind of like the same way you had the conspiracy theorists about the shootings of the children at the school when Obama was the president. And then you had the radio station personality who was saying that wasn't true, and that it was all fake and all the kids' deaths were fake. Well, he got sued, and I think he had to pay. He was found guilty or whatever, found liable. But that was Alex something. I forgot his last name. But, Spike Lee, the jury's out on you. I hope you're not talking about anything too dumb. I hope that you did go ahead and correct it. Don't try to bring in some of these dumb theories, because we already heard those before. And Spike, we don't need a black man jumping on the crazy train. Spike, just keep it to other things. Give us another movie. Why don't you give us a movie about Billie Holiday? Give us something like that. Give us something that we want to see. Give me a movie about Idi Amin. Somebody really gangster. Don't give me any of this bull crap. You fakery mess, Spike. But I still like you. So let's go back and talk just a little bit. Do we have any more time for some theory? So let me talk to you about another case in the news. The Robert Durst trial, Robert Durst is now, I think he's maybe 70 something, almost 80 years old. He's killed a few people in his lifetime and gotten away with it, because he is the heir to the Hearst, some fortune. It's like a billionaire fortune. And he was living out there in Galveston County, and allegedly he murdered his old neighbor, a white man who's old at the same time as him. They got into an argument. I guess Robert was like, I don't really like you. And so he murdered the man. And apparently, I think he might have dismembered him, put his body parts in different places. And they never had enough evidence to convict him. I think he had a mistrial somewhere in Galveston. Well, he's back on trial again. And now he's on trial. He was on trial looking like he was still in his medical garments. in a wheelchair with his mask on, looking like he probably had a colostomy bag. But all that was probably fake, kind of like Harvey Weinstein going up to court on a cane, talking about, I'm too old to be prosecuted, but he's not. So Robert Durst is finally going to be on trial again for the murder. But somebody said that he murdered his wife back in the 70s and got away with that murder as well. You know, his wife was apparently missing. He probably killed that woman, but they didn't have enough evidence. He was too rich. But let's move on from him. Let's talk about another killer in the news. This is a convicted killer, Dylan Roof. He has asked the federal courts to help him avoid the death penalty. Yes, he's been asking for leniency, clemency, and forgiveness, and to get out of the death chamber. Well, guess what? On Here Come the Feds. Sometimes we just love the feds, because over there in South Carolina, in that district, the federal judge denied Dylan Roof's request for an appeal of his death penalty conviction for the murders of the Black parishioners at the South Carolina church, where they were praying during their prayer service in the basement of the church, and invited Mr. Roof to come in and pray with them. They prayed over him, prayed with him, and held hands. And then after that, he took out his gun and single-handedly murdered each person, leaving one sole witness alive because he wanted to make sure she went back and told everybody what happened. After Dylan Roof committed this heinous act in the house of the Lord, he went out, and when the police figured out where he was, they took him to Burger King to have a burger instead of just shooting him on sight. Which is what a lot of Black and brown people and poor people and gay people and disabled people probably would have had to endure. There never would have been a part 2 story. But isn't there some irony in the fact that you have a gentleman? I'm not going to call him a gentleman. He doesn't really have any class. He kind of lost his class thing when he shot up all those people. So let's call this rogue killer. This rogue killer has people pray for him and ask for the Lord to forgive them of all of their sins. And he decided to take all of them out. And then he asked for leniency with the judge. And the judge says no, because for the crime that you committed, I wish I actually had the quote. Do I have the quote from what the judge said? Because I was very, very happy that the judge did not shy away, because a death penalty conviction, typically you don't want to be like the one that has your voice saying you are sentenced to die, because it's not like you're God, but you're kind of playing God when you're sentencing somebody to death. Well, this federal judge said, I don't care. I'm going to be God on this judge's bench. So he said, for the heinous crimes that you did, it doesn't matter what your lawyer's arguments were, that you were mentally incompetent. It doesn't matter about any of that. All I can say that the only just punishment for you, my friend, is death. I thereby sentence you to die. Yes, he said, no cold record or careful parsing of statutes and precedents can capture the full horror of what Roof did. His crimes qualify him for the harshest penalty that a just society can impose. The parishioners welcomed Roof, handing him a Bible and a study sheet. For the next 45 minutes, Roof worshiped with the parishioners. They stood and shut their eyes for closing prayer. Roof then took out his gun and started shooting while the parishioners' eyes were closed. This is what the court is saying. Then the court said on, parishioners dove under the tables to hide. Roof continued shooting, reloading multiple times. After firing approximately 74 rounds, Roof reached one parishioner who was praying aloud. He told her to shut up and then asked if he had shot her yet. Roof told her, I'm going to leave you here to tell the story, according to the court record. Now, when you look back at evil, here's what the judge says. Days later, during a eulogy for Pinckney, President Barack Obama described the victims as good people, decent people, God-fearing people, people so full of life and so full of kindness, people who ran the race, persevered, people of great faith. This murder conviction is one time where the federal judges got it right. And for all the death penalty naysayers out there, but for who should the death penalty be reserved for if not for the Dylan Roofs? Can you please tell me, if we're not going to kill a man who is murdering people while they had their eyes closed in prayer in a house of the Lord, tell me who should we pick then next? I mean, can somebody please find me somebody? I mean, Jeffrey Dahmer didn't even get a murder. He didn't even get the death penalty, but the prisoners handled it up for him because allegedly they had a broom handle that was found sticking out of his front of his mouth. Yes, they did. I don't know how it got there, but it didn't go in through his mouth. It was the handle sticking out the front of his mouth. You do the story on the rest. Let's talk about, okay, well, I can't talk about nothing. Oh my goodness. Outgoing Governor Cuomo. Here comes the feds. The feds need to go ahead and get Cuomo. He granted clemency to convicted murderers during his last hours in office. And yes, the feds, they're not going to be coming for him because guess what? When you're the governor, you get to go ahead and clementine anybody that you want to. Granting clemency is my new word for clementine. It's not a tomato or an orange like you thought. And then I'm going to talk about a little bit of more social justice. Monica Lewinsky, her movie coming out about the impeachment is coming about. And guess what? The Clintons are mad, baby. Bill and Hillary was spotted up there in the Hamptons, walking on the beach, talking about the case. Guess what? They're going to all be reliving it. And I got to say, Bill, you're looking pretty fit. You're looking like you were back in those Lewinsky days. But they got a beauty queen to play Linda Tripp, and she was a monster. Okay, I gotta go. We're gonna talk more about that later. I mean, come on. I don't think he should have been impeached for just getting a BJ. The jury's out on that. It's debatable. See you next time. It's Debatable with Attorney Nyan Zamora right here on 953 Jams, your station to listen to moi. Bye, everybody. Yes. I don't really think that they should have impeached Bill for getting a BJ. You know the Republicans said, we just impeached him because he lied. Hell, y'all lie all the time. You lied on weapons of mass destruction, but you didn't want anybody to be impeached for that, even though the truth came out. You didn't go back and charge Dick Cheney with mass murder when all those Americans, all those other foreigners that were, if they're fighting America's fake war in Iraq, is Dick Cheney watching the news? Is George Bush on his ranch watching the news about all these people that are trying to get the hell up out of Afghanistan? Okay, have you seen the people trying to fly? If you ever find yourself in a position running after a Black Hawk helicopter or any flight thing, and you are running, try to grab a hold of it. What you need to be thinking is this: what if I actually make it up? Because after about 50 feet, it's a little bit too late to let go. And once you reach 10,000 feet, there's no more air up there. Once you reach 30,000 feet, you might as well let go because your brain is going to stop working because it's too cold up there. Because it's too cold, it's too cold, it's too cold, and there's no oxygen. Then you're going to drop 30,000 feet to the ground and just be dead anyway. So if you are out there in Afghanistan, you need to flee and try to figure out a way to come to America. Problem is there are no boats that can get you over here. It's not like coming from Haiti. It's not like coming from Juarez. It's not like coming from Honduras. It's not like coming from Mexico. If you are an Afghani American that is trying to flee from Afghanistan, or if you are an Afghani, period, that's not American, you're trying to come over here, you need to get an automatic passport. Somebody needs to let you on that plane because guess what? We had no business in your country. The United States is the reason why Iraq is a mess. Yeah, it's our fault. We should not be having our hand in getting in other governments that are... Every government has their own way to run their own people. When those people are tired of doing what the people in charge tell them to do, they will revolt. That's what happened in France with the French Revolution. That's what happened with the Civil War with the racist South that tried to succeed from the Union. They had a war and revolted and they lost. But that's also what has happened in all these Spanish countries. When you're mad, the people revolt. That's what happened over there in Egypt when they had the Arab Spring, when everybody was revolting. When you're not happy with your government, revolt. Take up arms. But guess what? Immigrants coming that are trying to flee persecution and death, that no longer, if you're Mexico immigrant trying to run your butt over here to the United States, stay your butt at home. You know why? Because I no longer believe that your reason for seeking asylum in the United States and your reasons for coming over here illegally and trying to convince the United States government to fast track your citizenship is no longer a valid reason when I don't see Black Hawk helicopters and U.S. military helicopters in Mexico trying to rescue thousands of people. And I don't see any of those people up there trying to hang on a helicopter or an airplane leg trying to get out of the country. If that's the situation that you're in right now, then get your ass up on that plane and try to flee to America. They should let you in as soon as you get here without asking any questions. If you're coming from Afghanistan or one of those countries where we came in and bulldozed it and you're coming out, we did not do that to Honduras. We did not do that to Mexico. We did not do that to anywhere else. So let me just tell you this. If you're over here come to the United States, trying to get on this immigration train, talking about I'm seeking asylum as a person who's trying to flee the dangers of my country. Mexico, you're not in danger. You cannot tell me that a drug dealer across the street that's trying to get your kid to come over and sell drugs to them is the same as somebody in Afghanistan trying to run from a bomb that's going to blow up at any moment. It's not the same. I don't see them setting off weapons of mass destruction, or I don't see them setting off bombs in hotels, bombs in student centers, bombs at schools, and bombs at airports in Mexico or Honduras. I see that happening across in Iraq. So when the Iraqis want to come over here, when the Pakistanis and everybody wants to come over here and they say we are an American in Afghanistan and you're trapped, it's our duty to go over there and get the people that we put over there and bring them back home safely. I'm saying it. One military pilot or military commander in the U.S. was like, hey, I told 164 people to go, 100 and something people to go and wait for me, and that they need to wait for me at the Abbey entrance at the airport. But when I realized that they were proud that the Taliban was listening in and was going to bomb it, I said, don't worry about it. I'm coming to you. He got in a helicopter, got some helicopters, went to land at the hotel and said, get your butts up in the helicopter right now. Got them in a helicopter, went over and flew them basically down the street, avoiding all the riffraff and all the gridlock down there with the Taliban, and got them to the Abbey entrance and got them home safely. Those Americans are now at home safely watching CNN News and listening to me. Now, the other ones, it kind of makes you wonder, how is it that there's only a certain group of Americans that were able to figure out where the exit strategy was and be able to get on that little secret helicopter, get picked up and go taken to the airport and flown out? Is it the brown Americans, the Iraqi Americans that actually look like they're just Iraqis that didn't get to be taken over on the plane? Did you have to look like you were more white American or a brown American? What kind of Americans got over here? Because I thought just American was American, but hopefully the Americans just said, show your paperwork and get on the helicopter and get safely over to the U.S. Everybody else, Biden, you're in a pickle. This is an election season, and right now, Biden, if you don't do what you're supposed to do and get all those American citizens back home, you're going to give the red team enough political fodder to make you be like, I'm doing the war dance. Instead of the Republicans creating a new narrative that Biden is an epic fail with the exit strategy for Afghanistan, the Democrats need to come in and listen to me, Democrats. If you don't want to talk about how the F we got in there in the first place, Republicans. It's your fault that we're in this war that we had no business being in, Republicans. The red blood is on your Republican hands. That's how I would respond if I was a Democrat telling them. I'm wearing my Democrat blue today because today I'm a Democrat and I want to be like, Democrats, you better stand up because you're getting your butts handed to you. Not enough laws have been passed to protect us. Y'all, you were so busy worrying about the streets and the roads and the bridges a week and a half ago that you got the $3.5 trillion passed, but you didn't get the Americans out of Iraq. So you got American citizens that's going to be pummeled and blown up. And here's the thing. If they were so mad about Benghazi with the 4 or 5 or 6 Americans being killed or blown up outside the gates of the U.S. Embassy, and they wanted to take that and spend millions of dollars on an investigation where they found nothing had been done wrong, just imagine when it's the American citizens that are being murdered, how many faces, how many families' faces are going to be up at the State of the Union the next time with some sitting up there by the Repub saying, well, I'm here for the Americans that were trapped in Afghanistan because Biden wouldn't do what he was supposed to do. The Biden administration has epically failed, and the response needs to be, well, the Bush administration got us here in the first place, people. And the Cheney administration got us in that war. And let's go talk to Bush and Cheney about all the Americans that died. Let's talk about all that. Condoleezza Rice, where are you working now? You sitting on some kind of board? You're sitting on you were in on that 9/11 conspiracy too. That was your fault too, boo. I don't care that you're black. You were in on it too. And so were you, Colin Powell. Is that why you didn't run for president? We're going to talk a lot about Here Come the Feds and Here Come the Conspiracies. Anyway, all of you out there, I hope you enjoyed the show today. We did a whole lot of political gossip. We didn't get to everything about Andrew Cuomo, but I want to tell you, it's a whole lot of stuff to talk about in the sex game, because guess what? A husband and wife OnlyFans team made $500,000 a month. Oh, God, doing some husband and wife escapades. And I don't even know if it was good as Tommy Lee and Pamela Anderson, because that was his best sex tape. I've only seen 3 sex tapes. Pamela Anderson and Tommy Lee, which was my first one. I saw that back in the 90s when it came out, and I happened upon it because it was showing on the internet at school. And then I didn't watch Kim Kardashian. I saw the first 10 seconds. I saw her looking like a dummy. And she looked like she wasn't entertainment. It's like, well, this is whack. This is all for Hollywood. Because we know Ray J, and she made a video on purpose to go ahead and peddle so Ray J could sell it. And that's so she could be more famous than Paris Hilton. I'll talk more about that later on. But if you're out there listening to my show, I hope you enjoyed the show. I got a lot of tea for you all the time. I stay in the news. I stay listening to the news at all times. I know a lot about history of what's going on, but somebody needs to bring Bush and Cheney and call them to the carpet before they say anything about the Biden administration exit strategy. And on that note, I'm going to exit this strategy so I can get ready for my birthday party that's going to be on Saturday. They said the rain is coming, but guess what? Sugar melts, baby, and I look good when I'm wet. Bye, everybody. Bloop and bloop. Okay, do your magic on these. And now we're packing it up.